amazing time of the year. If you've been outside this morning, it's a little cooler. You know, it almost gives you that tempting of fall. But I know our weather here will go back. But we're excited about this time of the year. You know, the pace quickens, the heart beats a little faster, and we're getting ready to go for football. And there's no question, it is football season now. And we're getting ready, and everything we do, we're preparing for our opening kickoff. From an officiating perspective, we had a solid year last year. I was pleased with our season overall. But I want to tell you, we've been working hard in the off-season to get ready for this year. We've got to continue to improve our performance, and we had some good movement in the off-season. We had 3 officials actually get selected to work in the NFL, and we've had a few officials that won't be back with us, but we've got some really good young officials ready to step into those roles, and quite frankly, I think we're going to be stronger this year, you know, even when we lose a few people than we were last year, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, our off-season work in our program started back in January, so it's really not off-season for us. We did a ranking and rating session. I had an individual conversation with every one of our officials. We did that back in January. We had 2 spring clinics that our officials attended. We had a referee training and leadership session, which was really, really good. We've had a replay clinic up in Chicago. We've had 2 coordinator meetings where we work on, you know, national mechanics and consistency. And what you see from this little subtle view, but as the season progressed, we saw less targeting activity. That's what we were looking for. That's what we felt like. As you all know, playing time is the most important commodity to a player, and certainly to his coach. And that had an impact on behavior. And if you look at, kind of split the season, if you look at the back half, we had 5 targeting fouls. And that's a significant reduction, you know, in comparison to the first 8 weeks of the season, where we had 14 targeting fouls. So the trend is good. This is a good trend. And we've got to stay vigilant as officials, as coaches, and as players to do this. And I can tell you, when I look at video, I see evidence of now players lowering the target, and quite frankly, sometimes even pulling up on an unnecessary hit so they're not at risk for a targeting foul and disqualification. So I think the rule has done exactly what we wanted it to do. We've got to stay with it. And I would say this to fans. I mean, I heard a lot of fans say, this new targeting and disqualification is going to ruin the game. Well, I would tell you that probably 2013 was one of the most exciting seasons on record. And so the targeting change is not ruining the game. It's making our game better. And that's what we're excited about. So, and we're going to continue on that track, and we'll talk about that. There is a change in targeting this year that I think most of you will like, and I know our fans will like. So that really takes us into our rules discussion for 2014. And let me first say, just as a reminder of the process, we are now in a 2-year rule cycle. And so this year was an off year for rules, meaning the only changes that we really could make were around player safety from a big rule perspective. Certainly there'll be some, and I'll talk about them today, some editorial changes to the rules that will have an impact. But big changes were tied into player safety. I always remind everybody of this. Everybody thinks the officials make the rules, but the rule committee makes the vote, and there is a playing rules oversight panel that actually approves all rule changes, but that's done by the rules committee. And one point of note as we head into this, 2015, this next cycle will be an on year, meaning that all changes are up. So you know, so we can have anything even beyond player safety. So let me hit the 2 biggest changes we had, and we're going to do some video in here. I found that video is the best way to kind of see what we talk about. Sometimes what we talk about is dry, but when you look at it, it's real. So before we hit the big change, I want to hit the editorial change, and this is subtle, but this is going to help our replay guys as we evaluate potential targeting fouls. We've had a slight change in the words. It used to say, no player shall target and initiate contact, you know, at the head or below or with the crown of the helmet. But the key change here is initiate to make forcible contact. And why that change? Well, many times people would say initiate means that first point of contact. So if a guy nipped his shoulder and then drilled him, you know, above the shoulders, then, you know, you would say, well, did he initiate it to the shoulder? Now we're looking for that forcible contact. And that's going to help us in the replay. But here's the big change, and most of you are aware of this, but now when we have a targeting foul, and as you know, every targeting foul is reviewed, okay? So every one will be reviewed by instant replay. But now, if replay overturns a targeting foul, there will no longer be a 15-yard penalty assessed. Last year, the 15-yard penalty stood no matter what. If the targeting foul was overturned, the player would get to go back in the game. Now, if it's targeting only, then not only does the player go back in the game, but we will not initiate a 15-yard penalty. Now, let me give kind of a word of caution. And anytime there's a targeting foul, you need to really listen to the referee's announcement. Because here is what you will hear, and it's a subtle part of his announcement, but it makes all the difference for replay. If you hear him announce personal foul, roughing the passer with targeting, now, regardless of the review, that 15-yard penalty is going to stand for roughing the passer. Same thing, kick-catch interference with targeting, late hit with targeting. So in that announcement, if there are multiple components to the targeting foul, the 15-yard penalty will stand. Replay will not evaluate a judgment call like roughing the passer. They will only evaluate the targeting. So if it's multiple components and replay overturns it, the player goes back in, but will still walk off the 15-yard penalty. Now, we got Cole Cunningham. Cole really is terrific. He runs all our video for the conference. We've got 3 plays we're going to look at to kind of illustrate this rule. So this first play was from a game last season, and what you're going to see is, first of all, the real-time view, and, you know, bang, real-time, you know, very, very hard hit, and it looks like targeting, and actually we flag it. But here would be a play this year where the new rule comes in. As you see this, as we slow it down, right there, he goes in with his shoulder into the player's shoulder. We're going to get one more view. And what you're going to see is this is not a targeting foul. And this was a correct overturn last year. But last year, we still penalized this 15 yards. This year, we will not. This one now, the player would go back in the game. There would be no penalty. Now, another play here. Now, this was not an SEC crew working this game, but if you watch this play, here's an example of how you can have multiple fouls on a play. So we're going to look at the runner right at the end of the play. You saw it there live. We're going to get a couple really good replays on it. And what you're going to see is clearly there is targeting, but there's another foul component here. That player is down, and that's a late hit. That's a dead ball personal foul. And this would be a foul whether you hit him in the head or not, because that runner's down, there's no question, and then boom, he goes in. Now in this situation, you know, this would be dead ball personal foul with targeting, so it wouldn't be overturned, but if it was, in this situation, we would continue with the 15-yard penalty. Okay? One more play we're going to look at, and here's another example, and this is actually a play last year that on the field, we had a targeting call, and then replay overturned the targeting. And what I want to show about this, and again to the ruling this year, and we get a really good shot right here. So pause it right there, Cole. All right, that ball's gone. That defensive back, we're looking at number 4 there. He is probably 5 to 6 yards away from that receiver, and that ball's gone. He's got to recognize now this play is over. Now what you're going to see is he's going to continue on and then deliver a blow there. And so regardless, this is a foul. A 15-yard penalty will stand on plays like this, even if it's overturned. Okay? So that's kind of the view of if it's targeting only and overturned, no 15-yard penalty. If there's targeting in another component with it, then in that situation, we're still going to walk off the 15-yard penalty, but the player can go back in the game. Okay? All right, now the second biggest rule change for this year, and again, this is a player safety issue, and it is to protect our quarterbacks or people that are passing the ball. So as you can see this, when an offensive player is in a passing posture, Okay, so he can scramble, doesn't have to be in the pocket. He's in a passing posture, clear that a pass is going to be made. Now a defender rushing unabated, and that's the key word here, and I'll come back and hit that. A player rushing unabated cannot hit him at the knee or below. And again, the quarterback is most vulnerable when he's in that passing posture, and this is a player safety thing. Now, I had to go to the dictionary and look up unabated, and so I'd encourage you to do the same thing. But basically, what our officials are going to look at, when a player is under his own power, he's directing his hit, and if he chooses to go low, that is going to be a foul. Okay, and we've got a couple plays that I want us to look at in conjunction with that as well. So Cole, let's spin up the video. So here we're going to see the live action, and then we're actually going to take a look at the coach's cut. So here you see, you don't get a good view of it there, where you see the hit on the quarterback. But when we look at the end zone view, this is the type hit that can be very, very dangerous against a quarterback. Where the player chooses to go low, he's coming off the corner. It doesn't mean no contact with any offensive lineman, but he made a decision to go low, and that's the type foul that our referee is going to be looking for when they're in the box. Now we got another play from last year. You'll see a live action where a player goes low, and we'll go to the end zone view again. And this is the type hit again that when you see that, run that back hole. When that player comes in, the quarterback is in such a vulnerable position, and he goes low. That is very, very dangerous. And so really now people have almost said, do you have a strike zone for quarterbacks? And there really is. I mean, now you hit them above the knee and below the neck, and that's really the strike zone for defenders. And this rule change, I think, will create the player behavior change as the player's coming in. Now, the note, and go back one slide, a couple notes. Now, if a player is being blocked, into, the quarterback in that situation, it's not a foul. So we're going to use good judgment, but this is where the player, is under his own control and goes low. That's a foul. Now, there's a couple changes from instant replay, and a couple quick comments on replay. We're continuing to mature replay. People think it's integral to the game, but we've been playing college football 140 years, and we've had a short window with replay. So we're adding a few things, and we just note these in. So the location of the passer, this, believe it or not, was not reviewable. So if he's obviously in the field of play, we have a ruling of an intentional grounding that would result as a safety. Now that play is reviewable. So basically, if you have intentional grounding from the end zone, then that results in a safety. So now it's reviewable. Is he in the field of play, or was he actually in the end zone when the official made that call? Now, really, all cases of catch or recovery of a loose ball in the field of play or an end zone is reviewable. Now, we've got to see clear evidence of a recovery, not a big, strong pile-up, but a clear evidence of recovery, regardless of where it is always reviewable. And then, many of you would have thought this was reviewable anyway, but now a backward pass that goes out of bounds immediately that we had ruled as forward and incomplete is reviewable. So as we continue to work replay, we're going to continue to have subtle changes there. Now, there's some other changes. We won't hit all of these, but I want to talk about a couple of these. So the first bullet is we're expanding the experiment of using the eighth official. And I want to talk about not only what we're going to do in the SEC, but I want to talk about the eighth official and why it's there. Because I think there's this misconception that we're adding an eighth official to go faster and faster and faster. In the SEC, we are selecting one of our crews, and they're going to work with the eighth official all year. And then as note, and you may not notice this, but this is one of the things the coaches really wanted. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to take, in the first half, our line judge and field judge will be opposite the press box with the chains. At halftime, they're going to switch sidelines, and the head linesman and side judge will then work, the chains in the second half. So that's something you may notice that it's a little different mechanic that we're going to do this year, and we'll see the results of that. But I think everybody is behind that and think that'll be a good change. And then these last three I'll hit very quickly. But there's a little bit of clarification in definitions, and we're actually defining an inbounds and out-of-bounds player a little more clearly. And it creates a subtle, not really a rule change, but an editorial change. But you really have to establish yourself as a player either inbounds or out-of-bounds. And the example difference this year for this change is, in previous years, let's say you were a defensive back and you were standing out of bounds, you leaped from out of bounds, you went up in the air, secured possession of a pass, and landed inbounds. By the old rule, that was an interception because you had possession and you came down inbounds. Now you would have to establish yourself inbounds before going up and catching that ball. So this year, with this subtle change, if a player jumps from out of bounds, gets possession of the ball, lands inbounds, that would now be an incomplete pass. So subtle little change, but I think a good change, and probably what most people thought anyway. And then we've worked with, and we're really working with our teams. We get all these jersey creations now that are different, and we're just trying to ensure that you can read the numbers and the coloring are proper. And so there's actually some prescribed penalties for teams if they don't meet the requirements there. And then the one I kind of skipped over, we were changing enforcement on personal fouls on a legal forward pass for the defense. It's always going to be tacked on to the end of the last run if they complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage. So I think that's a good change for our game, and again, one that where every personal foul now really will be enforced. Now, we briefly hit the national points of emphasis. So these aren't just SEC points of emphasis, these are the national points of emphasis. And we probably had so much discussion around pace of play in our off season, and that is a national point of emphasis from a couple of perspectives. Number one is, nationally, we have to be very consistent. And the coordinators have met, we've talked, and we've actually built our mechanics, and we have specific words, specific ways that we're going to handle pace of play based on the current rule. And so I want to talk about, but let me kind of get off to the side. I mean, clearly there needs to be healthy debate around this topic and other topics in our game. And I know the commissioners even suggested that maybe we look at a football competition committee to look at this issue and other issues to see what's in the long-term best interest of the game, and I support that completely. But what I want you to know is we're getting ready for the 2014 season. What's the rule today, and how are we going to manage that consistently? So the rule today says when the ball is ready, the offense can snap it. So here's what we're telling nationally to all our officials. So, whether it's the center judge spotting the ball or it's the umpire, if we don't have a crew of 8, what we're saying is when the play is dead, the umpire or the person spotting the ball, you will not walk and you will not sprint. We're calling it a crisp jog, and we're trying to get all of our umpires together on the same page of a crisp jog. That we'll make a crisp jog, we'll get a proper spot, we won't just throw the ball down, we'll get a proper spot, we'll put it down, then we'll check to the referee. If there are substitutions, then you'll see him like this, we'll hold the ball. If there are no substitutions, the referee will release him, he'll release the ball, and then the offense will snap. So I think what you're going to see is very consistent work nationally, and I know there's athleticism differences sometimes between umpires, but we're really working for them all to do it the same way. A couple things also, no let up, I mentioned it on the start, no let up on targeting. Like I said, that is an important change in our game, and our officials will continue to stay very vigilant. So we penalize, offenders when they do target another opponent. Sideline management and control. We've talked with the coaches about this, and we really want to clean up our sidelines, and we're going to begin a journey to get that done this year, again nationally, and that's something that we'll have to work to. And then we don't even talk about it much anymore, but unsportsmanlike conduct, that was the big talk a few years back. That was another rule that was going to ruin the game, and quite frankly, I think it's cleaned our game up. But we won't let up there, and again, our guys will use good judgment, and we're looking, anytime you taunt an opponent, that's an automatic, and we do have automatics, the throw slash, a number of things. But we will allow a player to celebrate with his teammates. Some quick, natural response will be allowed. but anything choreographed, if it looks like he worked on it, in his hotel room the night before, that's a penalty. And so we will stay vigilant again on this sportsmanlike conduct. So that's really kind of from an overview what we're looking at from an officiating perspective. And I'm excited about the season. And as I always talk about, our aspirational goal as officials is to be perfect, never miss one. But that's a tall order. And quite frankly, what we will do, what we have been doing in our off-season, our clinic next week, and in our preseason work, is to absolutely be the best we can be. We ask our guys to officiate to a standard, and we have a strong standard by position in the SEC, and we expect them to meet or exceed that standard. And we evaluate it hard, but our guys work hard. They give a lot into this, and it's a passion for them. And we're excited about getting this thing started. My goal with our clinic next week, get our guys physically and mentally ready to work, and then we just go execute on Saturday. So we can't wait to get it started. The season will be here before you know it, and I appreciate your time and support of our officials. Thank you very much.